A lot of people don't realize that amphibians as a group are threatened. That not only are there like a few that are endangered species, but in general, amphibians across the country have been declining.
The amphibians are extremely vulnerable in their environment. They have an aquatic stage where they're vulnerable to changes in the water. They have a terrestrial stage where they're vulnerable to changes in the soil and the air quality. The inventory and monitoring networks have identified vital signs that are used to take the pulse of the parks. I specifically work to monitor the reptile and amphibian populations of the parks. One of the challenges we meet in monitoring is being able to capture snapshots of populations. In the amphibian monitoring, we can't set out traps that are going to capture the animals. It's much more important to get a snapshot of their normal behavior. In doing that, we employ refuge traps. Okay. So one of the ways that we capture a snapshot of the ecosystem is by using these cover boards. They offer a uniform sample of the forest floor. You never know what's going to be underneath one of these cover boards when you flip it. All right, go ahead. Oh, yellow-bellied water snake. All right. The cover boards offer shelter to these animals. Every month when I sample, we photograph everything that's underneath the board immediately as it's flipped, so that if we miss something, if it escapes or we didn't see it in the first place, it'll be on the photographic record. We're specifically looking for amphibians because they're the most vulnerable in the environment. But the habitats are shared with reptiles, and so we count the reptiles too. Not everything that we're monitoring lives on the ground. So we offer shelter to the tree frogs in the form of refuge pipes, PVC pipes that hang on the sides of the trees. And the frogs can come and go as they please. Tree frogs love these pipes. It makes a great little shelter for them. Minnow traps are used to measure aquatic amphibians, and specifically larvae, tadpoles, salamander larvae, newt larvae. And these are not refuge traps. These traps do capture the animals that we're looking for. And to avoid any harm, we only leave those traps deployed for 24 hours at a time. We have partnerships because this is a huge effort. The U.S. Geological Survey has stepped in and helped us through acoustical monitoring.
The program I work for in the U.S. Geological Survey is the Amphibian Research and Monitoring Initiative. And so our program is designed to be a source for research and long-term monitoring of amphibians all throughout the country. These boxes that we have are digital recorders, and they record whatever sound is available in the forest at the time. They can be programmed to come on at specific times on a very set schedule. All frogs species have unique calls, so we can tell which species a frog is by its sound it makes. What we've been able to do is work with some software that can allow us to search a lot of recordings all at once for specific species calls. We have exactly the same number of recordings at the same time of day every day, so we can look at how things change throughout the year, or long-term studies, how things change over years.
One of our university partners is the University of West Florida, where the professors and the students come out and help with our amphibian and reptile monitoring monthly.
So when there's a project like this where the National Park Service has this need for multi-park monitoring, it creates opportunities for partnerships in each location. So we're the local partner collecting data here in Gulf Islands National Seashore, and our interest specifically is in providing these opportunities for students to actually get this hands-on field experience. And the Park Service really likes the assistance that they can have with a very labor-intensive project. But we need that data actually to be able to effectively manage resources. The students are a really great resource to be key players in these monitoring projects.
Our sampling is designed to capture the common and the expected species. It's always a surprise when something new shows up. And at a couple of our parks, we have identified species that are not native to the park, not native to the United States. One of the frogs that we've discovered at Jean Lafitte at Barataria Preserve is the greenhouse frog, which is native to the Caribbean. It was detected first in our monitoring, and prior to that it was not known in the park. It's unknown yet if this frog is competing or outcompeting some of our native frogs like the eastern narrowmouth toad. As the environment changes, we're expecting to see more amphibians imported from other parts of the world. One of them that's knocking on our door, because it's known from only a few miles outside of the Barataria Preserve, is the Cuban tree frog. And the Cuban tree frog is an aggressive predatory tree frog that eats our native tree frogs.
We're getting concerned that Cuban tree frogs might invade in the Barataria Preserve. So what we decided to do is set up some of our automatic recording units, and we can scan those with our computers and pick out Cuban tree frogs, and hopefully we can use it as like an early warning system.
The findings of the inventory and monitoring program are reported directly to park management so that they might make management decisions to help mitigate the impacts of new species or disappearing species as these changes are detected.
The mission of the Park Service is to protect and preserve for the enjoyment and inspiration of future generations. We have about 5,000 kids that come through the park every year with their school or during summer camps, which we have going on today. They're out in the park having an immersive experience. Some of these kids are people that have never visited a park before. But if they get excited by it and they bring back their kids 20 years from now, the inventory and monitoring group gives us data on what we actually have out there. If we start seeing that things are changing over time, we can connect back with that data and find out, is it the same that's out here 20 years later? And if it's not, why not?
The parks do a great job of managing their natural resources, and no one understands what's going on in a park better than the park staff. But typically the parks don't have the resources on their own to maintain this type of long-term monitoring and data management that's maintained by the inventory and monitoring networks. To zoom out and to see this thing in a bigger picture, it is something that I'm proud to be part of. The vision of the Park Service includes this kind of complete understanding and the value for the science.